Massachusetts fishermen have struggled in recent years under increasing catch restrictions, all intended to restore the famed cod fisheries to health. But it may have been for naught. Last year, cod numbers in the Gulf of Maine suffered a dramatic and unexpected drop. And now fishing regulators say they have no choice but to shut down the fishery for at least 6 months. At Boston's Fish Pier, many of the boats had already offloaded their catch for the day. But for those that remained, there was a mood of anger and despair over the new federal cod fishing ban.
I think it stinks.
John Raymond has been fishing for 33 years. He says shutting down the Gulf of Maine will hurt bad.
I think it's going to put a lot of young, small guys under. They're just not going to be able to survive, and it's going to put a lot of hardship at a time when we need some relief.
At Atlantic Coast Seafood, owner Tori Bramante says no other industry faces such intense regulation.
This is the only industry in America that can slam the gavel down on us and give us 2-day notice of what's in store for us for the next 6 months and possibly indefinitely.
Federal regulators say the ban is necessary due to plummeting cod stocks, all caused by overfishing. But Mike Walsh says the government is just trying to drive them out of business.
I think it's going to do just what the government wants.
Walsh fished cod in the Gulf of Maine earlier this year and says the government's numbers must be off.
It made a couple hour tow, and it caught about 1.5% of the total tack of codfish in the Gulf of Maine. I find that amazing.
John Raymond says he'll figure out how to survive by fishing other species, but he worries that his profession is dying out.
It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. So I don't know how anybody's going to get in this business later on. You know, young kids and stuff. It's just, it's terrible.
So how is the larger fishing community responding to the new 6-month ban? I'm joined now by Vito Giacalone of the Gloucester Fishing Community Preservation Fund, which advocates on behalf of commercial fishermen. Welcome to Greater Boston.
Thank you, Emily.
The irony here that John Bullard, who's the former mayor of New Bedford, is now the new regulator. And if anybody would understand fishermen and the fishing crisis, he would. And he says we should have put this ban into effect years ago, because that's how overfished the Gulf of Maine is and other areas.
Yeah. The only thing I can say to that, and being heavily involved in the policy the last 12 years, this type of response, management response, sets us back a good 20 years. So it's the complete opposite of what John Bullard is saying.
Why would he say it?
Well, John Bullard wasn't around the last 20 years of regulation, and we have been. And so that's why we take great offense to bringing us backwards. What we have are draconian cuts. This isn't about the loss of fishing on cod, because the fishery has shown that it can, you give us a total allowable catch, that this is the total you can catch. We've had 80% reductions just in the last 2 years.
Well, they're saying there are no cod.
Yeah.
That you were going from 22 metric tons and down to 200.
Right.
That's what the new limit is, because there aren't any.
Yeah, that's a totally independent discussion. We know that that's not correct as far as the cod assessment, but we're also, that's what I mean by being progressive, is whatever the number is, we have a system in place that the fishermen can work with it until the assessment comes around and comes to a different conclusion. What this is, by doing complete closures, we have a 19 stock fishery. This shuts it all down. This is draconian. This is taking us, if you thought out a Neanderthal and told them, manage the fishery tomorrow, you'd come up with this.
Yeah, no, it's not good, especially with the 2 days notice. But so one of the things they're saying is, okay, we're going to drastically reduce your cod limits, but we're going to increase your haddock limits. But there's a problem there because the fisheries are the same.
Closing the areas.
Yeah, you're closing the area.
For 2 years, we knew that there was an erroneous haddock assessment, and it was really emergency type of situation for the fishery. A lot of people had to stop fishing. People went out of business. Recreational sector went over their amount, not because they were overfishing, but because the assessment was wrong. It took 2 years to implement emergency action, but yet in 3 months they were able to create a cod assessment without public involvement in the stock assessment, and go ahead and push this all the way to emergency action. So they're simultaneously increasing the haddock that should have come 2 years ago and closing the areas where you catch the haddock.
Right.
So there is no gift in the haddock assessment.
Fishermen brethren told us if fishermen brought in all their stock, everything they got, including everything that died in the nets. Would they then have a better assessment of, because a lot of cod die, everything dies at some point. Would you be able to make the count better? What is going to satisfy you about getting an accurate count?
Well, first of all, we have to stop relying exclusively upon the government trawl surveys. And this is not a criticism of the method that they use. The criticism is how we consider that data being enough. We sample, we've been doing the math, those surveys cumulatively sample 1 over 7,500. In other words, 1 kilometer is sampled out of 7,500, and they do that for 20 minutes out of a 365-day year. There's really no sampling being done. So no matter how long the time series is, it's subject to extreme volatility, and we're managing the fishery that way. We need to use fishery-dependent data, which fishermen are creating that data every day, and use that not to determine the debits in the account, but to determine the balance in the account. And we're not doing that in stock assessments today.
You don't believe, like one of the fishermen said, that the government is intentionally trying to put fishermen out of business?
I have always hesitated to accept that that could be true.
More and more people are eating fish, for one thing.
But there's certainly culture involved in that side, in the science side, defending whatever they say. And we've always said that fishermen don't say they're right. Let's just all be human about it and realize the humility in this is that we can't predict it exactly. So how could a 90% change in the assessment be so?
Peter Giacalone, this is a tough one going forward. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Emily.